Okay, so today we are using some of our wet and wet techniques that we just learned. We're going to be mostly using this variegated wash with separation, a little bit of this variegated. And we are going to paint a really simple sunset. So I have a couple of examples. This one's still damp and kind of curling, but I just think they're so beautiful and so simple, and you can really do a lot with this as a background. You can add in more details to make your story. So I just did this example as a warm one. And after I explain what I'm doing with this cool example, I will just let this play and you can watch how I did this one. Because every single demonstration is going to be slightly different, but the concept is going to be the same. So let's go ahead and start this beautiful little sunset. I am using, this is some paper that I just got. Honestly, I bought it off of Temu. Well, it was one of those free gifts with purchase kind of a situation, but it's 100% cotton paper, and it should be 360 GSM, 140 pound paper, but I really love the kind of natural edge, the torn edge on it, and it's really lovely paper. I'm very happy with the quality of it so far, and it does have the smooth side, and it does have the cold press rougher side. What I will say is, when you are using your watercolor paper, there is always going to be a rough and a smooth side. But if you use your water paper on the rough side, which is the side you would normally paint on, and you don't like the results, as a practiced artist, I will flip it over and paint on the other side. I know that some people don't do this, but supplies are expensive, and this side will take paint differently but nicely as well. So don't discount something if you hate it on this side. Go ahead and flip it over. I've done lots of finished paintings on the back side's paper. So, you know, just because you think something is a rule doesn't mean that you have to live by it, right? Okay, so for this demonstration, I am using a number 10 round brush. This one I just got. It's a Paul Cezanne set that I bought also off of Temu, but it's a synthetic squirrel brush, and it holds water nicely in the barrel, and it comes to a nice tip here. So we're going to be using our cool primaries. Again, this is the Daniel Smith set. So we're using our cool primaries, and let's see. Here's my swatch card. So we are using the Hansa Yellow Light, the Quinacridone Rose, and the Phthalo Blue green hue, but that's the color. So these three colors, that's how I have my standard palette set up, with my cools on one side, my warms on the other. So for this one, I'm using my cools. And the first thing we want to do is to wet our paper. This is a new brush, so I am getting a little bit of shedding. I also have dogs, and I'm a mammal too, so hair happens in painting. Don't worry about it. Just pick it out later or as you go. So we are wetting our paper, and what we want to do is to get our paper saturated and shiny, but without puddles. And because I touch my paper, as everyone does, we have to be a little bit just aware of the fact that there may be fingerprints on our paper, and oils on our hands can cause the paint to not stick to that area. So when I'm doing the wetting of my paper, I just gently scrub it to remove some of that. So now I have a nice even wet application here. My paper is shiny, but it's not you know, puddling anywhere. I'm just spraying a little bit of water on my paint to activate them, and then I am going to put out 3 piles of my paint. So if you think of it, start with your yellow because it's your lightest color. Again, I have my 3 water system here. So I have my fresh water that I'm not putting my brush in. I have my working water that I'm constantly using. And then I have a dump bucket so that I can quickly get fresh, clean water every single time I want it. And without having to get up over and over. So this is the rose. Just gonna put some of that down. And this is a very small kind of painting demonstration. So I'm not having to, you know, make big piles of paint. But I'm not mixing here on my palette. I'm just using the paint as it is. So now that I have my paint out, I went ahead and just started again with some fresh water. And because I'm using this 3 water system, I can just use a little bit at a time and that works out just fine. So I'm gonna pick up my blue. And the idea is we have the blue sky and the water, and in between we're gonna have the sunset. So I'm not going to do, you know, even strokes here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna concentrate most of my intensity up here at the top. And then I'm going to just kind of crisscross a little bit, leaving and wetting my brush and paints more, but leaving myself some white space here and there, and we can lift off a little bit as well. And then I'm going to take that same wash and drop in some of that blue down here at the bottom. And again, kind of just going back and forth, leaving some white space. Next, now we have talked about this, yellow and blue will make green together, so we need to have kind of a buffer area. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and stick this permanent or quinacridone rose right here kind of in the middle. And this is going to give me some beautiful mixing on my paper. And if you get a spot like that, that's a little bit too wet, you just take your paper towel and you clean it up a little bit. So I'm going to do the same thing here on the bottom, and see my paper is starting to dry here on the bottom a little bit. I just went ahead and wet my brush and get this a little bit more wet. Now in the middle is where I'm going to concentrate my yellow. I want to keep a spot where I know that my sun is, and kind of using the rule of thirds, I'm going to determine where my sun will be. And since I have a nicer white spot here, I'm going to kind of put my sun here. So it's more of a sky than the sun. So my sun is going to be kind of here. So I'm going to leave that space kind of light and white. And then I'm going to start dropping in. And this is really a pretty wet wash. I'm going to start dropping in this yellow. And see over there, I started getting that yellow blending with my blue, and I didn't want that. So I just used my brush and my paper towel to kind of take that off. And I don't want any hard edges at all at this point. So I am spreading this yellow out a little bit, and I'm kind of liking what's happening with my water. I didn't like how hard that sun kind of circle was. So I've kind of just added a little water and then taken it off to loosen that up. But at this point, because we're using good cotton paper and we have plenty of water, we're able to kind of pick up things that that we maybe don't need. And so in this kind of area where my water is, I don't feel like I have enough blue. So I'm going to take some of this yellow and some of this rose, that pink color, and I'm going to take that out just with my dry brush. And I'm just taking my brush, I'm wiping. I don't want to take it all out, but I'm kind of wiping and drying off my brush and kind of cleaning up where I want my water to be. And then I'm going to take again, this really nice watery mix of the blue. It's still just that straight pigment, but it will mix somewhat with the other colors there. So I'm using the tip of my brush. You can see that I'm holding my brush much more toward the tip than before. And I'm just dropping in some hints of this blue. So that's bleeding a little bit more than I want into the yellow. So I'm just going to smooth it out. Okay. And there's a little just drop of pigment there. I want also, I think I want this yellow just bleeding a little bit more up here. And because I'm dropping this into wet paint, this pure kind of pigment, I'm gonna get some blooms, and I'm kind of looking for that. So I am just kind of gently putting in a little bit more yellow and then smoothing it out. And then I can put a little bit more of this rose up here. I mean, this sunsets are dramatic, so you can kind of do what you want here. You can make these really pretty, like, swoopy lines as your paper dries. Remember from our exercises that we just did, your lines are actually going to become more crisp. So up here where my paper is more dry than here, you can see that the paint is not spreading as much. And then I want to kind of mirror some of that drama that I just created by adding more of this rose down here in the water. But remember, water is going to look a little bit more wiggly than your sky, right? So you need to just kind of vary your brush strokes a little bit. Okay, and now I think that's it. So we have to wait for this to dry. If you see spaces that are white, leave them alone mostly. Like up here, I think that's a little bit too dramatic. So I am taking out some of that stripe, and I still want this nice and dark up here though. So I'm gonna pop in a little bit more of this kind of pure color to make a shadow here. Maybe like this cloud is starting to curve up and back around. So you can mess around with it some, but at this stage, you really kind of need to leave it alone. And I'm gonna take my own advice and stop right here. Okay, so I'm basically finished here. I am just taking a dry paper towel and lifting off some of the paint to make a little bit more of a cloud shape up in the top. And then my paper was getting a little dry and I wanted it to be a little bit more of a subtle effect. So I went back and just gave it a spritz, and that will create some really soft edges and blooms. And then again, with a dry brush, that you see me just wiping off on the paper towel, I'm just creating some lines that are going to look more like ripples in the water. So try at this point, though, not to mess with it too much. I honestly think I could have stopped a little while back. Um, but next week, when we're in class, you're going to have your dried sunset background. That's what we're painting today. And we're going to go ahead and go on top, and we're going to create a silhouette. So you'll want to, uh, get some inspiration pictures together. We went over some of those in class, and you're really looking for fairly simple shapes. We don't want like really complicated drawing involved here, but you'll want a fairly simple shape that that will go on top, and then we're gonna have distance and, uh, really give the painting some perspective once we put those in. I've obviously gone back here with a little bit more pigment to make part of these clouds just more defined, and a little bit more vibrant up at the top. So we'll just finish up here, but go ahead and get this done this weekend. And I'll see you in class on Wednesday, and we'll get into how to finish this little painting. And I'm really excited. I think these always turn out so beautifully. So, one more comment though, some of you in class were getting frustrated with this exercise. Please don't worry. It does take practice, and you are getting to learn your paper and your brush and your paints. So you are learning so much by doing these exercises. Don't forget, if you hate it on one side, flip your paper over, give it another go. It's going to be a cold, yucky winter weekend. So cozy up inside, do some of these cozy painting techniques, work on your brush stuff, really experiment with your water control. And I will see you in class next week.